Hey, first gear. Here we go. It's a gear. Here we go. Hey, man, how far you going, man?
Oh, right here it'd be fine.
Whew, there's so many different options out there, from lures to rods to reels to lines. But don't let it get too confusing for you guys. That's what I'm here for. Today on Captain's Corner, we're talking about gear ratios. What gear is best for you? Do you have a need for speed, or should you know when to go slow? It's all about the gears. We're going to break down everything you need to know, and we're going to do all that using an amazing new reel from KastKing, the Royal Legend Elites. It's Captain Mikey from Captain's Corner coming to you for KastKing. Today on Captain's Corner, I'm going to help simplify gear ratios. I'm going to break down so it's real easy for anyone to understand what gear ratio on your reel is best for each situation. With the help of the Royal Legend Elites, I'm going to show you how KastKing has made that even easier. What is gear ratios? It's those numbers usually located on the bottom of a reel. It's usually a couple different numbers followed by a 1. 8.1 to 1, 7.3 to 1, 9.3 to 1 in the KastKing Speed Demon reel. But what do those really mean? Well, it's really very simple. When you're looking at gear ratios on a reel, be it a 6.6 to 1, like the blue Royal Legend Elite, or 7.3 to 1, like a black Royal Legend Elite. What does that truly mean? What that means is the spool in the center here turns 7.3 times for every one single rotation of the handle. Obviously, it's all about speed and how much line each crank of that handle is going to be able to bring in. Why do you need so many different gear ratios? Simply put, because you have so many different presentations. And each gear ratio is going to shine better on certain presentations than it will on others. KastKing has actually come out with a brand new idea here that actually makes it so simple. In past, you just bought 4 different reels to cover a whole different variety of gear ratios. What KastKing's done now with the Royal Legend Elites is one series of reels with 4 different gear ratio options. And they made it even a little simpler. They color-coded those gear ratio options. That makes it real easy. Time is a big factor out there. And I gotta look down on my deck and I gotta figure out between all those black reels, which one of those is my low speed reel. Well, KastKing's made that a little simpler. The low speed reel is white. Now all I gotta remember is colors. White is my low speed. Blue is the next speed up. Black is the next speed from there. And red is the top speed overall. And that's the first in the industry. Nobody has done this before. The reason there are so many different gear ratios out there is because each gear ratio is going to be best suited to specific techniques and maybe not work as well in other techniques. The 5-to-1 gear ratio is generally one of the lowest gear ratios you're going to find out on the market. That is a big, strong gear. It doesn't move a ton of line real fast, but comfortably, I'm going to be able to move big lures that have a lot of resistance in the water without having to really strain myself because I'm going too fast. The lower gear speed ratios like 5.3 to 1 is perfect for crankbaits, especially deep diving crankbaits. They have so much drag and resistance in the water as you're pulling it through. If you're going too fast, it's going to even increase that more, and it's really going to wear you out. Think of it like this. You're riding your mountain bike up a hill. If you put your mountain bike in high gears, in the high-speed gears, you are going to burn yourself out. You are going to be exhausted by the time you finally get to the top of the hill because you had to work so that much harder. You put it in a low gear to get uphill like that. Well, that's the same exact idea and principle behind a lower gear ratio like a 5.3 to 1. Anything that has that strength and resistance, that heavy drag behind it, it's going to be a lot better in a lower gear speed. A lot easier on you. You're not going to burn yourself out too much throughout the day. You can go all day long without killing your arm or looking like Popeye by the time you're done. I use it for any presentation where I have a lot of resistance and drag in those lures. Be it a big, heavy lure or something that has a big bill like a crankbait that's going to drag through that water. Alabama rigs, 3 to 5 other lures, all creating that resistance to drag on there. The big swim baits, the big wake baits, things that you don't really want to move too fast anyway, but they do create a lot of resistance coming through that water. That's where a 5 to 1 gear ratio is really going to help your game out a lot. And next up on the Royal Legend Elite series is the blue. This one's 6.6 to 1 gear ratio. The 6 to 1 gear ratios are probably the most versatile gear speed that you're going to find out there. You can pretty much work just about any presentation with a 6 to 1 gear ratio. It's a very versatile middle of the road gear ratio, but it is leaning slightly towards the low gear, the slow gear. And if you are a beginner or you're just looking for your first casting reel, if you just want to stick with one reel, then I would go with something like this. A 6 to 1 gear ratio can pretty much work just about everything that you need to do. It's a good versatile speed here, but it's not perfect. What I use it for most is anything with a steady retrieve. Anything that I don't have any slack in that line. I'm not using the rod to work that presentation. I'm strictly using the reel. Things that I fire long distances, keeping a tight line from the reel right to the lure the whole time. Things like spinner baits, chatterbaits, swim jigs, paddle tail swim baits, and even lipless crankbaits. Things that I'm probably going to fire a good distance because I'm covering a lot of water and I'm doing a pretty much steady retrieve where my line is tight almost the whole time. A 6 to 1 doesn't have a ton of speed. So if you have a presentation that has any slack in that line, you want a little higher speed to be able to catch up to that slack, to be able to set the hook real quick. A 6 to 1 doesn't quite have that kind of speed. So it excels in the presentations where you're steadily moving that lure along, like a spinnerbait or a chatterbait. Also on things like spinnerbaits and chatterbaits, an excess of speed will tend to make those lures rise. 6 to 1 is a perfect speed ratio. It gets those blades spinning perfectly and it'll keep it at that level. Long distances, covering lots of water with a steady retrieve and a nice even pace, 6 to 1. That's the reel that I choose for that every time. The Black Royal Legend Elite boasts a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. It's still a little bit of the middle of the road. It's a good versatile gear speed, but it's leaning more towards the fast end now, to the high speed. Now you have that speed to be able to start moving baits a lot faster with a lot less effort. Now you have the ability to really burn lures, to put them across the surface and look for those reaction strikes. Where a 7 to 1 truly shines for me is any presentation where I'm using the rod to work the presentation, not the reel. Things like topwater, poppers, jerk baits, Texas rigs, Carolina rigs, bottom baits that I'm hopping along the bottom. Any of those presentations or will leave a bit of slack in that line anytime. Weightless soft plastics where you're letting that lure kind of dangle. You got a lot of slack in that line, a lot of freedom for the fish to grab and run. You want to be able to catch up to them quick. Now, at a 7 to 1 gear ratio, you have the speed you need to be able to catch up, reel that slack in fast enough, and get a good hook set. It's giving you the ability to be able to move lures a lot faster, creating a whole new area of reaction strikes, but also being able to catch up on any slack lines or running fish. So any presentation that requires my rod to work the presentation, creating that little bit of slack line or that little bit of hop in the lure, that's where I'm going to always reach for my 7 to 1s. And that's going to bring us to the top. The red Royal Legend Elite, the fastest of the bunch, 8.1 to 1 super fast speed. When I'm talking the 8 to 1 gear ratios, you are talking fast. The difference between an 8 to 1 gear ratio and a 5 to 1 gear ratio, in one crank of the reel, you're talking 4 or 5 inches of line per crank, faster than a 5 to 1 gear ratio. That is fast, and that makes a tremendous difference out there. I strictly use my high-speed gear ratios like the 8 to 1s for my heavy cover situations like flipping and pitching for 2 very good reasons. The first reason is I'm making a lot of quick short casts. I want to get that lure in there, work it, and out of there, and fire it off to the next spot. Quickly moving that lure along from spot to spot to spot. I need a fast reel to give me the ability to be able to move that fast. For me, the biggest reason I use the high-speed gear ratio in heavy cover is because I want to be able to turn that fish quickly and get him out of there before he wraps up into any of the real heavy stuff. It's an excellent frogging ratio here too as well. I'm putting that frog into the heaviest, thickest of stuff. When that fish comes up and grabs it, you don't want to set that hook right away. You got to give it that second or two, creating that little slack in that line as the fish starts to dive down, and then you need that speed to be able to crank down real quick, pull up the slack and set the hook and turn that fish around and pull him out of there as quickly as possible. So for me, when I look at my high-speed gear ratios, my 8-to-1s, I'm thinking right away, I'm thinking flipping, pitching, and anything in heavy cover. You're going to land so many more fish in heavy cover with the high-speed gear ratio. I put my highest speed gear ratios on my heaviest rods. So your 8-to-1s, think heavy cover, flipping, pitching, any kind of fishing where you want short, quick, accurate casts, and then bonus, it's going to pull the fish out of that cover a lot faster than anything else, hopefully helping you land a lot more of those fish. So there you have it, 4 different gear ratios in one series of reels. The KastKing Royal Legend Elite reels have made this so much easier and so simple for you guys. Not only were they the first in the industry to coordinate colors to gear ratios to simplify things for you, they put a ton of ingenuity into these Royal Legend Elites. It's ultra small profile, they call them palm perfect. They literally fit in the palm of your hand. Ergo twist side plate opening with the swing hinge side plate, keeping it attached the whole time so you're not going to lose it, doesn't fall off. 17.5 pounds of drag, 11 ball bearings and an anti-reverse ball bearing. They even put ball bearings in the level wind here. These are features you only see on extremely high-end reels, all for between $70 and $75. That is pretty darn awesome. If you want to get your hands on some of these amazing Royal Legend Elites, no matter what gear ratio you're looking for, we've got links down below to get your hands on your very own Royal Legend Elites. Well, folks, I really hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned a little something. If you did, make sure you smash the heck out of that like button, and leave a comment on anything else you'd like to see us make a video out of, and we'll do our best to make a video out of each and every one of those. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next episode of Captain's Corner right here on KastKing. One last time, guys, from beautiful North Florida, I'm Captain Mikey signing out. The future is bright. You keep those lines tight.